Well, so just passing by in the V70 on my way over to meet George and swap the V70 for the 850 T5, and I drove past Listers Volvo in between sort of Worcester and Hereford, and I saw a sort of yellow roof line in the window, and I thought I'm going to have to stop by and check that out. So let's go and have a look at a Gul Yellow T5R. So this is actually owned by Volvo themselves. This is their own car. And if you've been following my YouTube channel, then you will probably know that this is my absolute dream car. Prices on these have started to go a little bit nuts. I've seen one change hands recently for £25,000, and I believe that one went to Miami. So the market on these cars is extremely hot. Everybody seems to want a fast Volvo estate. Of course, that wasn't always the case. When James May bought one for that Top Gear episode that you'll remember, he bought a T-5R for 1,500 quid.
We were each told to buy a second-hand estate car here in Britain for not more than 1,500 quid.
He'll have a Volvo.
Yeah.
He just will. He'll have got
yes,
estate car, right? I'll get it because you know he's got no imagination at all.
As it turned out, James did have a Volvo, but not the sort of Volvo we were expecting.
That isn't an 850R, is it?
It is. That's a bold call.
Gentlemen,
Yes.
You bought an 850R?
it doesn't matter, it's a Volvo. This defines the estate car. Nothing else is an estate car, only this.
Have you seen the tyres on an 850R?
Well, there aren't any.
It has tyres,
Painted on.
It's just a thin veneer of paint on a wheel.
but they're high-performance tyres. It's a high-performance car.
Those days are long gone. So 95,000 miles on the clock on this one. Interestingly, it doesn't have the wood wheel where the T5 I'm collecting today does. But overall, that is a very, very nice car indeed. High specification, so you've got the sunroof, Alcantara half leather, which is obviously heated. But really, it's all about the colour on this car. And being Volvo's very own press car, this one is really something special.
It doesn't matter, it's a Volvo. This defines the estate car. Nothing else is an estate car, only this.
No heated rear seats, which is interesting. So heated rear seats was an option on the 850, but mostly on the continent. And if you've seen an 850 in this country with heated rear seats, then I would absolutely like to know about it. I would definitely like to fit heated rear seats in the back of my 850 TDI, but finding them is interesting. So 250 odd horsepower on this car, and these of course were made famous by the touring cars.
Volvo ahead, room for 7 inside, and it leads the Toyota.
Rickard Rydell was third fastest.
We're with Jan Lammers now, 4th position, and TWR boss Tom Walkinshaw is here, and it's his men who made the Volvo 850 fly, and Jan Lammers of course.
Volvo, when they launched this car, did two cheeky things in the marketing. One, if you've seen my video on the history of the Volvo 850 police cars,
if required, a car like this could go at 150 miles an hour.
You'll know that Volvo gave a T5 saloon to pretty much every police force in the UK in 1995, I believe. And then in 94, 95, they took the estate into the touring cars. Now, the reason they took the estate into the touring cars was because Volvo had commissioned a Swedish company to do a design study on the 850 in general to see if it was going to be basically any good for racing. So they said to them, go on down to the factory and pick yourselves up a shell and get started. And then the development company phoned back and said, there's only estates. What do we do? And Volvo said, just crack on. So that's basically how the race car came around. It was almost an accident, but it turned out to be an absolute stroke of marketing genius.
Because it's a high-performance car.
The race car itself wasn't particularly successful. It never won a race. And interestingly as well, the drivers didn't actually like driving the estate cars because the other racers would take exception to being overtaken by an estate. So as the estate car went past, they would generally give it a little nudge, which is why when you watch that old footage back, so many clips of the 850 estate have the rear bumper hanging off or folded in half. Allegedly, the drivers didn't actually want to drive the estate. And if you've ever driven a Volvo 850 estate, it's incredible that they managed to make it competitive because they are big lumbering things. Here we go, then we've got the bonnet open so we can see the engine on this car. So it's 240 horsepower. And I'm just reading the panel next to this car. So it will be at this dealership for just over the summer, a couple of months, and then they'll swap it around and another press car will maybe take its place. Bit of marketing, but it's a very cool car to see. So M5 TSR was bought from a Volvo dealer in Birmingham, Lex Birmingham, as a 4-month-old ex-demonstrator, and the same owner then kept M5 TSR for its entire life until Volvo purchased it, apart from a couple of years in the early 2000s when it was owned by a friend of his. So this car basically has a fully known history, and you can see why Volvo would want to buy it back. It's interesting that Volvo didn't have one of their own that they owned from the start. Maybe they didn't see that this car was going to become as iconic as it did, and manufacturers often don't. And then they are looking in the second-hand market to buy back their own classics. But great to see, and basically a superb car. If you like your P80 Volvos, if you like your 850s, this is where it's at, and this is where it all started for me, really. The YouTube channel and the Facebook page and everything has always had this car on the cover since the start. So there we go. Little walk around. And if you've got a Volvo and you need it servicing, or if you want to come and buy a Volvo, probably not the sort of Volvos that I normally buy and sell, but this is the place to come.
YouTube's most boring car channel.